Most people hate the thought of needing to go shopping for a used car. I mean, first you gotta go talk to this guy and listen to his sleazy sales pitch as he tries to upsell you and sell you a piece of crap car for way more than it's worth. So in this video, we're gonna do a comprehensive list of everything that you need to know when it comes to going shopping for a used car. First, we're gonna talk about how to pick the car that best suits your needs based on your budget, and why this is hands down the most important part in the entire process of buying a used car. From there, we're going to talk about how to do your research to make sure that you're getting a good price for this vehicle, how to do an inspection while you're at the car dealership, how to negotiate. We're going to walk you through start to finish everything that you need to know. So for those of you guys that are new to this channel, I talk a lot about different topics when it comes to personal finance. So if you're interested in taking control of your finances, consider subscribing, leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you guys. So when it comes to buying a used car, a lot of times people get scared of the haggling process, right? They want to make sure that they get the absolute best possible price for their car that they can. And that makes sense, except getting the best price for the car is probably not the most important part of this whole process. Think about it like this. Let's say that you went out and you bought a used car for $15,000 and you take it home and things are going great until you drive past a different car dealership the next week and see the exact same car sitting on the lot being sold for only $14,000. Now at this point, you would be furious because you just overpaid by $1,000 for the exact same car. So just think about how mad you would be, and then imagine a different scenario where instead of buying a $15,000 car, you went out and bought something that's a little bit more budget friendly based on your needs, and you went out and bought a car that was worth $8,000. Now in this case, you just saved $7,000. Now remember back when we were so pissed off because we lost $1,000 because we overpaid for this one particular car? But instead, we might be able to save $7,000 simply by getting a different make or model. So that's why it's so important to pick a car based on your budget. Now when it comes to budgeting for a car, a lot of experts suggest that you pay no more than 15% of your total take-home pay on transportation costs. So that means, hypothetically, if you make $5,000 a month, and after taxes and insurance and all that other stuff that your employer withholds, if you're only taking home $4,000 a month, you would want to spend no more than 15% of that $4,000 on a vehicle. Now when it comes to that 15%, that's all inclusive for transportation. So that means your car payment itself, gas, maintenance and repairs, insurance, that's everything inclusive needs to come to that 15% mark. But also keep in mind that that is the upper range of what is recommended for transportation costs. There's nothing that says that you actually have to spend 15%. So that should be where you start at when it comes to your monthly budget for a car expense, and then work your way down from there to see what realistically you can afford. And this is important because most Americans waste a ton of money on cars. Cars depreciate in value, and they do so rather quickly, especially for newer cars. So if you were to go out and buy a brand new car worth $30,000, in the first 5 years of owning that car, your car will have likely gone down in value by about 50%. So by the time you factor in the miscellaneous taxes and insurance and fees and all that kind of stuff that you're paying on this $30,000 car, it's very likely that you're going to spend $35,000 or more on this vehicle by the time it's paid off 5 years down the road. And that $35,000 that you spent in return is only getting you a car that is now worth $15,000 5 years later. So you have lost $20,000 worth of value by owning a depreciating asset. So for that reason, I highly recommend that once you come up with a total dollar amount that you're wanting to spend on a vehicle, that you target cars that are at least 5 years old and under 100,000 miles total that are fitting this criteria of your budget, and start looking at those kind of cars. Because after 5 years, the majority of the depreciation has already occurred, and it's still new enough of a car that it is safe and reliable, and it's going to get you a lot of good miles. So once you have an overall price in mind, you're going to want to go to the car dealer's website and just kind of see what options they have that fit that criteria. Something that is within the budget, hopefully about 5 or 6 years old, and like I said, under 100,000 miles. Now these dealership websites, they're going to have a lot of pictures, they're going to have VIN numbers, they're going to have the price, they're going to have pretty much everything that you need to know. So from there, what I highly recommend doing is checking the price versus a few other websites like Edmunds, TrueCar, or KellyBlueBook.com. This way you can sort of fact check the dealer's quoted price for this particular vehicle against what it is historically worth in your area. So now that you know both the dealer's quoted price and also what the car is estimated to be worth based on some of these other car websites, it's time to actually go to the dealership itself and take a look at some of these cars. Now when you get to the car that you've already looked at online, you're going to want to do a lap around it and start looking for things, minor defects, such as dings or dents in the vehicle, the paint. You're going to want to look underneath the car to see if there's any obvious signs of any leaking fluids onto the ground, that kind of a thing. And you're certainly going to want to take it for a test drive. Now during the test drive, you're going to want to do a variety of different things. You're going to want to try to accelerate rapidly, test the brakes. You're going to want to test the air conditioner and the heat. If it has electric windows, make sure you roll up and down all 4 of the windows, etc. If it has cruise control, you're going to want to test the cruise control. Basically, you want to check as many of the functions of the vehicle as possible in order to make sure that there's no defects with it. And you're going to want to test these systems in a variety of different conditions. So it may not be sufficient to just turn on the radio and make sure that the radio and the speakers work. You might want to turn up the radio louder than you normally would to test the speakers to see if they're blown out or not. And then the last thing that you're going to want to do before you get into the nitty-gritty details of negotiating with the dealership is you're going to want to ask them to provide a Carfax report or something similar. So what a Carfax report does is it kind of provides you a history of this particular car. How many owners it had, what was it used for, was it in any major accidents, that kind of thing. So things to be on the lookout for, especially when it comes to used cars, is the number of owners that a vehicle had. So I typically say no more than 2 owners for a used car, because if a car has had, let's say, 7 owners, then chances are relatively high that there's something not quite right about this car, and that's why everybody is trying to get rid of it after they've bought it. So the more number of owners that a car has had kind of raises a red flag that there might be some hidden issues with the vehicle. Additionally, it's going to tell you what the purpose of this vehicle was. So if this car was a rental car in its former life, then that might be a red flag, because we all know how we treat rental cars, and that might have some extra wear and tear and just generally be kind of beat up just from being a rental car. Now, if it was in some sort of an accident, that's not immediately something that is going to be a problem, but you are going to want to make sure that there's no frame damage or anything like that, where if you had to replace other parts down the road, that this frame being bent or misshapen is not going to prevent you from doing the kind of maintenance issues that you're going to need down the road. So if it was something minor and they just kind of buffed it out, replaced a fender or something like that, it's not going to be a big deal. But just make sure that there's not any significant structural damage to the vehicle. Now, once you're satisfied that this car is going to fit your needs and it's something that you're actually interested in pursuing, it's time to start the negotiation process. But the biggest key to the negotiation process is not to make things personal. Sometimes people get attached to a particular car. They really like the interior, or they really like how fast it is, or whatever the case may be. Don't make it personal about the car. Make sure that you're in a position of power such that you are able to walk away from this deal if you don't get the price that you want. So when you start the negotiation process, Obviously, the car salesman is going to tell you what the cost is, but everything is negotiable. And when it comes to the price of the car itself, typically the dealership is going to come down to the price that, no kidding, they need to sell it for rather quickly. It's not like you're going to need 10 different back and forths as far as haggling the different price before they reach their final decision. So once you let the salesman know that you are at least interested in this particular vehicle, they're probably going to take you inside to one of the offices so that they can start the negotiation process as far as price and financing and all the rest of that kind of stuff. Now, when they list off the price, that's going to be the sticker price on the window of the car. Now, obviously, everything is negotiable, so you're probably going to want to start the negotiation on the low end of whatever the value of that particular car was, based on your research at those websites, Kelley Blue Book, Edmunds, and TrueCar, etc. Now, it's important that you don't just completely lowball this offer. Make sure that this is based on the data that you found online. Because if you just throw out a ridiculously low number, the dealership is not going to take you seriously. They're not going to come back with a counteroffer or anything like that. They're just going to sort of dismiss you as somebody that's not genuinely interested in purchasing a car. But when you make an offer that is low, yet still within the realm of reason based on historical price data, the salesman is then going to take this offer to his boss for final approval. Now, more often than not, then he's going to get up and leave the room and go talk to his boss, and it might take 5 or 10 minutes, and then he's going to come back and make you a counter offer. Now, when he comes back with that counter offer, I always like to counter one last time to drive the price down as low as I possibly can. So at this point, you're going to make a small adjustment, not a large one, a small adjustment to the price that the car dealership quoted you, and let them know that you are interested in financing this vehicle. Regardless if you have money to pay in cash or not, let them know that you plan on financing this car. And this is a super important point when it comes to the negotiation process, because believe it or not, car dealerships don't make any money on actually selling you the car itself. In fact, the average profit from selling a used car is only about $65. So if they're selling you a $10,000 used car, the dealership only made a $65 profit on actually selling you the car. Selling the car is not where the dealership makes their money. The dealership makes all of their money on the back end. Financing, warranties, extended coverage, insurances, that kind of a thing. So knowing that the dealership makes all of their money on the back end, a dealership is willing to sell you a car relatively at cost on the front end, with the expectation then that they will make all of their profit on the back end from this financing and warranty and repairs and that kind of stuff. So when the salesman comes back after negotiating with his boss and you counter that one last time, typically they're going to drop the price of that car to as low as they realistically are going to lower that price point. And that's when you're going to want to move on to the next stage and start negotiating the rest of the items. Because once you've actually purchased the car, they're going to want to try to upsell you a wide variety of different things. Extended warranties, gap insurance, maybe free lifetime oil changes, all kinds of different stuff that they're going to try to upsell you on. And it's a lot of these items that they make their money on. So for example, the last used car that I went and bought, they had offered me a free lifetime oil change if I paid an extra $700 up front. And I thought that was crazy, but apparently some people actually go for stuff like that. I mean, even in a best case scenario, if I own this used car for the next 10 years, that's still $70 a year for oil changes paid up front. I can go places and get oil changed for a lot less than $70 a year. In addition, what if I don't own that car for 10 years? What if I only own it for 5 years? Or what if I move to a different location and I can no longer take it back to this spot to get my free oil changes? So typically when it comes to all of these extras, the bells and whistles, you're going to want to decline everything. You probably don't want gap insurance, you don't want that extended warranty, you don't want any of that stuff, because that is where they're making a lot of their money. Instead of getting an extended warranty, I would highly recommend that once you know that this is the car that you plan on purchasing, once you've established a price, ask the dealership to let you take the car down to a local mechanic, pay the 50 or $100 or whatever it costs to have a mechanic professionally look at it, and they'll be able to look under the hood and tell you realistically what kind of shape this car is in and what kind of long-term problems you might expect from this. And so that'll alleviate a lot of the problems of feeling like you might be buying a lemon or something like that, and it will largely eliminate the need for one of these extended warranty plans. And then at some point they're going to ask about the financing itself. And remember, I said that even if you have the money to pay cash for your car, you never want to go to the dealership and pay cash. You always want to tell them that you are going to finance your vehicle. If you have enough money to pay cash, you're still going to want to finance it. Do that for 1 month and then pay off the loan in full. But technically, you financed it. And this is because the car dealership expects to make a good amount of money on this financing. And so when they know that they're going to make money on the financing side of it, or at least they expect to make money on the financing side of it, they are much more likely to give you a good initial discounted price on that vehicle. And the way that car dealerships make money on the financing is that these car dealerships get some pretty fantastic rates from different banks and lenders because of the sheer volume of people that they are driving to this particular lending institution. So they can get some really cheap interest rates on these auto loans. And then what they do is they add an extra 1 to 3% interest onto that loan. So what started out as a super cheap interest rate because of the volume that they deal, by the time they add their 1 to 3%, now it comes out to more of a normal interest rate that you feel confident in paying. But they're making a gap, a wedge, based on the higher amount of interest that you're paying versus the lower amount of interest that they are paying to the bank. They're acting sort of like a middleman in this case. So if the dealership is collecting a 2% gap on, let's say, a $25,000 auto loan over a period of 5 years, which is normally the duration for an auto loan, they're making about $1,300 in profit just based on the interest rate change. So they don't really care about the $65 profit that they're making on the car itself. They're looking for the $1,300 profit from the financing. And they're looking for the profit on selling you that extended warranty and gap insurance and all of these other tasks. The price of the car is usually the last thing that they're actually interested in. Now, when you finance the vehicle, some dealerships will tell you that if you plan on paying this loan off early, you need to wait at least 3 months before you completely pay it off. That is 100% lies. There is no reason that you need to wait 3 months before paying off this loan. The reason that they try to tell you this is because they get bonuses from the lender for loans that stay open for at least 3 months. So it benefits the car dealership, it doesn't benefit you. And so sometimes dealerships bend the truth or outright lie and tell you that you have to wait at least 3 months before paying it off. It's not true. Get the loan, get the financing, and then if you have the cash, just immediately pay it off the very next day if you want. And then the last way that car dealerships make money is from the service department. Now, typically cars, maybe it's still new enough that it still has some factory warranty left on it, or maybe the car dealership is offering a warranty, or it has like a certified pre-owned type of a warranty. So what they are doing is they are banking on making some profit when you bring this car back in for repairs. Historically, the service department is actually where they make the bulk of their money. Financing takes up a big part of it, but the service department is where the real money is made for these car dealerships. So if they're trying to upsell you any extended warranty, or in my case, lifetime oil changes, they're trying to get you into their service garage so that they can continually maintain your vehicle, because they know that in the long run, that is going to be a major money winner for them. Also, keep in mind that literally everything is negotiable in this entire process. So a lot of times people think about negotiating the initial purchase price of the vehicle, but that's pretty much where the negotiations end. But you can negotiate everything, to include interest rates and miscellaneous fees that you are being charged during this process. So the only legitimate fees when it comes to purchasing a vehicle, there's not a whole lot of them. You're going to pay, state tax, if any. You're going to pay, title, registration, and insurance, and that kind of stuff. But beyond that, there's usually a bunch of extra fees that kind of get tacked on at the end. These might be things like dock fees, advertising fees, delivery and prep fees. There's just a wide variety of different fees that they try to tack on at the end and hope that you don't really notice or pay attention to. All of these other fees are going to be 100% negotiable. So when it comes to this point, just simply tell them that you don't want to pay these fees. And a lot of times they'll simply drop them, or at least dramatically reduce them, because once they're this far in the process, they don't want to lose you. They don't want to have done all this paperwork for nothing. They still figure that they're going to make some money on the financing and service side of things, so they're willing to let some of these fees go by making that sale. And in some cases, they might tell you that a particular fee can't be waived because it has to be recorded. That's fine. If that fee is, let's say, $300, then ask for a $300 discount on the purchase price of the vehicle from what you've already agreed upon, and then that $300 fee will then bring the price back up to what you had originally agreed upon. That way you're still technically paying that fee, but you're also still only paying the total purchase price that you are interested in paying. So that's going to do it for us today, folks. So if you follow all of these tips, not only should you get a really good price for your car, but you're going to get a lot of car for your money. If you found educational content like this, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you all again next time. Thanks.